All right, we'll start with our sponsors, and then we'll go right into the Gemara. Today's Gemara is not an easy Gemara. I'm going to warn everybody, okay? Year of Learning, Dr. Paul Koenigsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koenigsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Leibush, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nissen Hara Nissen ben Fardosa. Paul and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malka Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Rav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Paris, Saratova bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gidler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, Cheryl Sher, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva, Marcia Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel ben Harav Shimon. A week of learning, sponsored by Michael and Judith Poretsky, in memory of his brother Avram ben Gershon. Today, a day of learning by Siggy and Lala Bessler, in memory of their granddaughter, Panina Margalit bat Dov, by Milton and Pearl Frank, in memory of his father, Yaakov ben Moshe, by Eunice Pivovovich, in memory of her father, Chazan Avram Chaim ben Tzvi Hirsch, by Sonia and Gary Nadrich, in memory of her mother, Chana bat Yaakov, and his brother, Baruch ben David. May the Shamas have an Aliyah, Krank Rafia, Velti Yeshir Hashem Atliya, L'chol B'nai Yisrael, a good Gaben Shtiar. Okay. I'd like us to start this morning on the very bottom of Kaf, towards the bottom of Kaf Chet Amud Beis. Wasn't sure how much people were able to cover over Shabbos, but I felt that that was at least a point where we could jump off for the new Amud. Okay, Gemara, remember, has been discussing this whole business, okay, here of Rabbi Shimon versus Rabbi Yehuda, what psukim they darshan, things like that, okay? And towards the end of Kaf Chet Amud Beis, the Gemara comes back, okay, after looking at the position of various other Tanaim and who they agree with or don't agree with, okay? It still comes back to the asking the basic question, Mani matnitin, according to whom is the statement in our Mishnah, okay? And then it presents three positions. Rabbi Yehuda, if we think it was the view of Rabbi Yehuda, Chametz stama ka'amar. In other words, Chametz in general, whether it belongs to the Jew or the Gentile, that Chametz is totally forbidden, okay? Regardless, okay? On the other hand, afilu denachri, as the Gemara says. Okay, so it can't be according to our, that doesn't mean, that's not what our Mishnah says. Ve'i Rabbi Shimon, and if it's the position of Rabbi Shimon, that's found in our Mishnah, we go over to Kaf Tet, Amud Aleph now, our daf for today. Di Yisrael Nami Mishra Kashari. Then that would even permit a Jew who retains chametz over Pesach, it would still permit that chametz to be permissible. Ve'i Rabbi Yossi Haglili, and if you say it's the view of Rabbi Yossi Haglili, Afilu toch zmano nami mishra kashari bahana. Then if that's the case, even according to Rabbi Yossi Glili, the Jew who has chametz during Pesach, okay, that chametz is permitted afterwards, right, for benefit, okay. But not only that, it's permitted during the yontif as well for benefit, which, by the way, is going to tell us that means that yontif, that he holds, Rabbi Yossi Glili, that such chametz has monetary value. And I mention that because that's going to come up later in our discussion. Okay? Now, Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Get now to here. He's going to say, Le'olam Rabbi Yehudahi. No, the view in our Mishnah is according to the position, the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay? So that, remember, says no chametz whatsoever, Jew or Gentile. Okay? Okay. V'yalif se'or da'achila mi se'or da're'iyah. And he suggests, says Rav Acha bar Yaakov, that Rabbi Yehuda learns a connection between the prohibition of eating any leaven, and notice the interchange of the word se'or and chametz, meaning really the same thing, okay? The connection between not eating it is tied into the prohibition of not seeing it. And then he cites the text. Ma se'or de're'iyah shelcha i'ata ro'eh. Whereas since the pasuk says your se'or, your chametz, cannot be, you should not see it. Aval atoro eshel acherim, but you may see that of others. V'shel gavoa, and that of the Most High. Af se'or da'achila shelcha iyata ochel. So likewise, the leaven regarding eating, okay, for yours, you are not able to eat it. Aval ata ochel shel acherim v'shel gavoa. But you may eat, okay, the chametz of others and of the Most High. Okay, but the Gemara now picks up on this, Rabbi Yehuda's view, and tells us, ubadinhu, and it seems logical or reasonable, de'ibaye le lemitna, that it should have been necessary also to teach da'afilu ba'achila nami shari, that if that's the case, then eating also would have been permitted, namely that of the Gentile, the chometz of the Gentile. Va'ide detana di Yisrael asur bahana'a, and since our Tana of the Mishnah is teaching us that there is a prohibition of benefit, Tana nami dinachri mutar bahana'a. The Tana then also teaches that in regards to chametz of a Gentile, it's also permitted with benefit. Ubadinhu, and here too it seems reasonable to argue, or logical to argue, de'ibaye le lemitna, that it should have been necessary for him to teach, da'afilu betoch zmano mutar bahana, that even during the time of the holiday, I'm putting in the extra words, it is permitted to have benefit. Va'ide detana di Yisrael la'achar zmano, and since he taught in regarding the chametz of the Israelite that it was after the time of the holiday, Tananami denachri la'achar zmano. But therefore he taught in regards to the Gentile also after the holiday. So that's his explanation, claiming that our Mishnah can be understood like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, now, if we go on, we see a different view next. Rava Amar. So Rava is going to disagree and say, Le'olam Rabbi Shimon. No, he argues that it's the view of Rabbi Shimon that's found in our Mishnah. Okay, that means that there's no biblical prohibition regarding chametz after Pesach. Okay, so if that's the case, the Rabbi Shimon knasa kanis, and Rabbi Shimon is establishing a knas, a penalty, the Rabbanan. Okay, ho'il va'avar alei bebal yara'eh ubal yamatzeh. Since it's such that the Jew has held on to chametz, okay, and the Torah's prohibition says one should not see it, one should not have it, and one find it. In other words, in one's possession. Okay, that's Rava's explanation. So the Gemara now comments as we continue. Bishlema l'Rava. That explanation, according to Rava, seems acceptable. Hainu dikatani, since it's our Mishnah that teaches Shel Yisrael Asur, that the chametz that belonged or that was associated with the Israelite is forbidden. Mishum shene'amar. Why? Because it says lo yira'eh. It should not have been seen. However, says the Gemara, Ela l'Rav Acha bar Yaakov, right? Okay, who we saw, right, just above, right? Okay, who takes a different view, right? Mishum lo ye'achel chametz. He could have learned that same position from a different pasuk, namely the pasuk that says one should not eat chametz, mibayele. Okay, that verse could have been used by Rabbi Yehuda for the same prohibition. Okay, and that's why it could have been necessary. Mi savarat aseifakai. So the Gemara asks, do you think that statement comes to focus on the end part of our Mishnah? Okay, that says that the chametz of the Jew is forbidden, while that of the Gentile is permitted. Areshakai. No, it really comes on the beginning part of our Mishnah. Vahachi ka'amar. And this is how we have to say it, we understand it. Chametz shel nachri, if there is leaven of the Gentile, she'avar alav ha'pesach, that has, right, been in his possession over the holiday, right? Mutar bahana'a, mishum shene'amar, it's permitted to have benefit, okay? Why? Because the pasuk says, "Lo yira'eh lecha," it's not to be seen. Shelcha yataroeh, aval ataroeh shel acherim v'shel gavoa. But you may see that which belongs to others, namely Gentiles, and that of the Most High. V'yalif sa'or da'achila mi sa'or da'ri'iyah. And he will learn, okay, regarding chametz, vis-a-vis eating, from the issue of chametz in regards to being seen. So the Gemara, however, tells us, right, Va'azdu l'ta'amayhu. And they went according to their reasonings. In other words, Rava went according to his view, that it was more the perspective of Rabbi Shimon in our Mishnah. Okay, and the Rav, right, Acha, right, went according to his view that it was more like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, that seems to be the point here. De itma, as it says now elsewhere, ha'ochel se'or shel nachri, one who eats the chametz of a nachri or leaven of a nachri, she'avar alav ha'pesach, that was retained, let's say, during the holiday, l'divrei Rabbi Yehuda, according to the view of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabba amar loke, Rabba says that person, that Jew, is to be punished with malchus. V'Rav Acha bar Yaakov amar eino loke. And Rav Acha bar Yaakov, who holds like Rabbi Yehuda, says the person does not get malchus for eating the Gentile leaven. Now, Rav, a further explanation on the part of the Gemara. Rav amar loke, Rav says he gets malchus. Lo yalif Rabbi Yehuda, se'or da achila mi se'or da re'iyah. Why? Because he argues that Rabbi Yehuda does not learn the prohibition of leaven for eating from leaven for being seen. V'Rav Acha bar Yaakov amar, and he says eino loke, that one does not get malchus. Why? Because he argues that Rabbi Yehuda yalif se'or da achila mi se'or da re'iyah, does learn, right, the prohibition of leaven vis-a-vis eating regarding the prohibition of leaven for being seen. However, the Gemara now tells us, V'hadar be Rav Acha bar Yaakov mehahi. And then Rav Acha bar Yaakov recanted, changed his opinion. Okay? D'Tanya. Why? Because we have a Braita that teaches as follows. Ha'ochel chametz shel hekdesh b'moed. Okay? Now, remember when they darshaned the pasuk of Lo Yira'eh Lecha, the darshaning was that you could, right, yours you cannot see, but you can see, okay, that of Gentiles or Gavoha, the Most High. Okay? So now, taking the example of that which is Gavoha, Most High, this Braita connects to it. Why? Because it says, one who eats the chametz of Hekdesh, right? That's Gavoha, right? And therefore, b'moed, on the holiday. So if he eats chametz, even though, okay, it belongs not to him, ma'al, says the Braita, he has committed an act of me'ilah, okay, implying that this chametz has some value. V'yesh omrim, and there are those who say lo ma'al, that the person did not commit me'ilah. So Gemara takes a little digression here to try to clarify the Braita. Man yesh omrim, who is this yesh omrim who disagrees? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakanehi. It's Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakaneh, the Tanya who teaches in a Braita. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakaneh, Haya oseh et Yom HaKippurim kishabat l'tashlumin. He establishes behaviors, okay, of transgression on Yom HaKippurim, parallel to how we behave regarding transgressions on Shabbat vis-a-vis the requirement of any financial payments. Now, what does that mean? It means that we understand that there is a concept called kam le b'derabba minei, okay? Namely, that if a person commits a transgression, okay, and let's say, for example, we'll take the Shabbat initially. He, lights the fire and burns the haystack of his neighbor. He is chayav on two items. Number one, for lighting the fire on Shabbat, for which he would get karet. And number two, in burning his neighbor's haystack, he owes his neighbor a certain payment. Well, which is the more severe punishment? Karet. Okay? So that punishment takes precedence. So that's what we're saying with kam le b'derabba minei. Okay? That we establish on him the greater item. Okay? Making the parallel here. Okay? If he says you have someone eating chametz during Pesach, that's punishable with karet. Okay? Therefore, chametz must have monetary value. Why? Because he can derive hana'ah from it after Pesach. And that's the view of Rabbi Shimon. So that tells us that Rabbi Nechunya HaKaneh would say, as he did, okay, that one would not get malchus. Okay? Namely, continuing back in our Gemara, Ma Shabbat mitchayev benafsho, clarifying, since his act of transgression on Shabbos makes him guilty of something regarding his very life, upatur min hatashlumin, and therefore he is exempt from any payments. Here's our, right, kam le b'derabba minei, af yom hakippurim mitchayev benafsho. So likewise, he would say that regarding transgressions on Yom Kippur, one also puts his life in danger, upatur mitashlumin, and he would be exempt from any payments. Okay, so that seems to support, again, the view that of Rabbi Shimon. Okay, now, Rav Yosef comes along, and he wants to put a spin, an explanation on this issue. Rav Yosef Amar, b'podin et hakodashim laha'achilan l'klavim k'miflagei. Okay? That what they're arguing about, he's saying here, is the fact that can you take this chometz shel gavoa, or kodshim, that belong to the Most High, okay? And can you claim that it's still a valid foodstuff, monetary value, and feed it then, if it can't be used for mizbeach, use it to feed dogs. Okay? That's what they're arguing about. Okay? Man da'amar ma'al, the one who argues that committing such an act is that of me'ilah, kasava, must be of the opinion, podin et kadashim la'achilaim leklavim, that it's permissible to redeem consecrated meat, okay, and feed it to the dogs. Uman da'amar lo ma'al, and the one who says they have not committed me'ilah, kasavar ein podin, must be of the opinion that they cannot redeem that meat. Now, Rav Acha bar Rabba, okay, Tana la, right? So the Gemara picks up and continues. Rav Acha bar Rabba, okay, taught the following regarding Lahash Ma'ata, Mishmei de Rav Yosef Bahalishna. He taught Rav Yosef's explanation in a slightly different language, in a different version. Namely, the Kuli Alma Ein Podin et Kodashim Lahachilan Leklavin. Right? No, he says everybody agrees that we are not able to redeem this consecrated meat, okay, to feed dogs, right? The implication being, okay, that once it's no longer valuable as a korban, it's not valuable. It's not a monetary worth, right? And so what happens? Implying the following, Vahacha, Vahad Kamiflige. And this is what they're really arguing about. B'davar hagorem lemamon kemamon dami. Okay? Namely, what they're arguing about is that an item that can cause a financial loss is to be considered to be of monetary value. Okay? And so therefore, is that what the same thing applies to regards to the chametz? Okay? Is it something that has value? Right? Certainly it has value after the holiday. What about during the holiday? Okay. Man da'amar ma'al, and this is how he explains Rav Yosef's view. Whoever says that the person committed me'ila, kasavar davar hagorem lemamon kemamon dami, is of the opinion that potential financial loss implies monetary value. Uman da'amar lo ma'al, and the one who says no, they did not commit me'ila by taking that kodshim, right? Kasavar davar hagorem lemamon lav kimamon dami. Okay, holds that potential financial loss does not imply monetary value. Now, Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar, he argues and says as follows. This is his view. The kuli alma davar hagorem lemamon kimamon dami. He argues, no, everybody accepts the idea that an item that can cause a financial loss is to be considered of monetary value. Vahacha beplugta de Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbi Shimon kemiflage. And here, excuse me, what they're really arguing about is our Mishnah's discussion and the machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon in regards to this chametz. Namely, man da'amar, man da'amar lo ma'al, according to the one who says they have not committed me'ila, ki Rabbi Yehuda, must hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Uman da'amar ma'al, and the one who says they did commit me'ila holds like Rabbi Shimon. Implying, again, does that chametz have monetary value? If it has monetary value, okay, if that's the case, what are we saying? We're saying that, in essence, okay, if I understood it correctly, okay, that if it has monetary value, okay, then one has committed, okay, an act of me'ilah. But more than that, one is over on that chametz, okay, versus the opposite view. Now, Gemara continues. Vaha Rav Acha bar Yaakov. But what about the fact that Rav Acha bar Yaakov, who? The Amar Rabbi Yehuda, who said, according to the view of Rabbi Yehuda, Yalif Se'or Da'achila Mi Se'or D'Re'iyah, who claims that Rabbi Yehuda learns the prohibition of chometz regarding eating from the prohibition of chometz, as we said, being seen. Ela hadar be Rav Acha bar Yaakov mehai. But then we're told that Rav Acha bar Yaakov recanted from that purview. So we now come to another attempt to explain the machloket and the Mishnah. Rav Ashi Amar. Rav Ashi suggests the following. Okay? The Kuli Alma Ein Podin. Everybody agrees that we cannot redeem the kudshim to be able to feed it to the dogs. Not only that, v'davar hagorem lemamon lav kimamon dami, and that something that could cause a potential financial loss does not necessarily be considered of monetary value. Okay. V'hacha beplugta de Rabbi Yossi Haglili v'Rabbanan kemiflagei. And here, okay, this argument between Rabbi Yehuda, okay, and Rabbi Shimon is really similar, according to Rav Ashi, to the machloket between Rabbi Yossi and his colleagues. What is that? As we continue, Man de Amar Ma'al, the one who says that they would commit Me'ilah, ke Rabbi Yossi, must hold like Rabbi Yossi. Uman de Amar Lo Ma'al, and the one who says, okay, that they did not commit Me'ilah holds like the rabbis. Okay, implying in this case, all right, that in essence, okay, if you don't hold that the chometz has monetary value, then it's not Me'ilah in regards to the situation of a chometz of hekdesh, okay? And therefore, if that's not Me'ilah, it's not worth anything, okay? And therefore, one does not get malchus. Okay. We pick up now a new thread, I'll say, in the Gemara, okay? We saw in passing that the Gemara is trying to make a difference in terms of discussing chametz during the holiday and its consumption or benefit versus chametz after the holiday and its consumption and benefit. Okay? And that's where we're going to get into this new topic. And the new topic not only deals with, let's say, the kind of chametz based on, okay, its time frame, but also the mixture of that chametz, either with something of its same kind or with something of a different kind. Okay? And in doing so, the Gemara is going to give us a basic premise here that says to us, in essence, okay, any kind of mixture, how do we determine whether it becomes nullified? right? And number two, besides that issue of nullification, okay, it's also a question of, does there result in any kind of taste when those items become mixed? So we have in essence, okay, multiple levels. We have mixture of chametz from during the holiday. We have mixture of chametz after the holiday. We have the mixture with something of its similar kind, and we have mixture of its along with something of a different kind. Okay? To make a quick example, and then we come back into the Gemara. If you have chametz flour from Pesach, what happens if it gets mixed with regular flour? That's a mixture of similar kinds. Okay? If I have matzah, okay, what happens if it gets mixed with bread? That's mixture of different kinds. Okay? So let's now try to make a little sense of the next part of the Gemara. Amar Rav, says Rav as follows. Okay. Chametz bismano. Okay. If we have, okay, the following. Leaven or chametz from the time of the holiday. Bein b'mino, bein shelo b'mino. Becoming mixed with something of its same kind. Like we said, flour, chametz flour from Pesach, getting mixed with other normal flour. Bein shelo b'mino, or we have a mixture of a different kind. Matzah with bread, asur. Okay, it is forbidden. Shelo bismano, chametz that comes after the time of the holiday. Bimino, if it becomes mixed with similar things, similar kinds. Asur, it's forbidden. Shelo bimino, but if it comes mixed with things that are dissimilar, mutar, it's permitted. That is Rav's view. B'mayas kinan, what are we talking about? Ilema benoten tam. If we're talking about a situation, okay, that the amount of one item is going to impart a taste to the entire mixture, right? Shelo bismano, if it's after the holiday. Shelo b'mino, and not with a similar kind, mutar. Is that really permitted? Asks the Gemara. Ha yehiv ta'ama. But isn't it nevertheless going to give some sort of taste? Ele b'mashu. But rather we're saying it was only a small amount, just a minute amount. Chametz bismano, leaven from during the holiday. Bein b'mino, whether it becomes mixed with something of a similar kind. Bein shelo b'mino, or mixed with something of a different kind. Asur, it's forbidden. And the Gemara explains. Rav latame, Rav is following his own reasoning. The Rav u'Shmuel da Amrei Travaihu, because both Rav and Shmuel say the following: Kol isurin shebetorah, all those prohibitions found in the Torah, b'mino b'mashu, when they mix with a similar kind, even a small amount, shelo b'mino, Okay? If they mix with something that's not of a similar kind, benotain ta'am. There it's based on the question of taste. Therefore, we have to understand the following. Rav Gazar, Rav made a gezerah. Chametz bezmano, any leaven from during the holiday, shelo b'mino, okay, even when it mixes not of a similar kind, atumino, lest people accidentally mix it with a similar kind, v'shelo bizmano, or there's a mixture of chametz from after the holiday with a similar kind, asur, that is forbidden. Ki Rabbi Yehuda, as is the view of Rabbi Yehuda. V'shelo b'mino, but it would seem that any mixture, okay, from after the holiday with something of a dissimilar kind, okay, would be permitted. Why? D'shelo bizmano, because when it becomes after chametz that's from after the holiday, v'shelo b'mino, and when it's mixed with a dissimilar kind, atumino, lest it lead people to mix it with a similar kind, kuli hai lo gazrini. That far, we don't have to make a decree. Okay. Now, Shmuel's view. Shmuel says, Shmuel Amar, chametz, if we have leaven, chametz, bismano, from during the holiday, and it becomes mixed b'mino, with something of a similar kind, right? Asur, that's forbidden. Shelo b'mino, if it becomes mixed with a dissimilar, mutar, it's permitted. Shelo bizmano, chametz that comes after the time of the holiday. Bein b'mino, bein shelo b'mino, regardless if it mixes with something of a similar kind or mixes with something of a dissimilar kind, mutar, it's permitted. So the Gemara continues. Chametz, this chametz, bismano, b'mino, chametz from the time of the holiday, mixing with something of a similar variety is forbidden. Shmuel l'ta'ameh, Shmuel holds according to his reasoning. The Rav Shmuel the Amri Travaihu, because again, both Rav and Shmuel agree, and the two of them say, Kol isurin shebetorah, b'mino asurin b'mashu. All prohibitions, okay, of mixing from the Torah, when they mix with a similar variety, are forbidden even with the slightest amount. Shelo b'mino, but when they mix with something of a dissimilar variety, b'notain ta'am, then the prohibition depends on if it gives some sort of taste. Shelo b'mino atumino, okay, if it's not, okay, when it's not of the same variety, does it lead to people doing it with the, perhaps mixing with the same variety? Lo gazar. Shmuel did not make that decree. Shelo bismano. And if it's chametz from after the time of the holiday, bein b'minan, bein shelo b'minan, whether it's mixing with something of a similar kind or something not of a similar kind, mutarim. That means it's permitted, to Rabbi Shimon, like the view of Rabbi Shimon. Now, Rabbi Yochanan is going to weigh in on this argument. Okay? And what's he going to say? The Rabbi Yochanan Amar, he says as follows: Chametz bismano, leaven from the time of the holiday, from during the holiday, bein b'mino ubein shelo b'mino, whether it becomes mixed with a similar kind or mixed with a non-similar kind, asur b'menotein tam. It is forbidden when it imparts a certain taste. Shelo bismano, chometz that comes from after the holiday, bein b'minan, bein shelo b'minan, mutar, whether it mixes with something of a similar variety or mixes with something of a dissimilar variety, it's permitted. Picking up the Gemara now, chametz bismano, we said chametz from the time of the holiday, bein b'mino, bein shelo b'mino, whether it mixes with something of a similar variety or something of a dissimilar variety, benotein tam. Okay, again, just repeating that statement of Rabbi Yochanan is dependent upon whether it gives a taste. Rabbi Yochanan latame. Rabbi Yochanan follows his own view, his own explanation. The Rabbi Yochanan v'Reish Lakish, the Amrei Travayu. Because Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish together both said, Kol Isurin Shebetorah, all of the prohibitions found in the Torah, okay, of mixtures, prohibited mixtures, bein b'minan, bein shelo b'minan, regardless of whether it was a mixture of similar varieties or a mixture of dissimilar kinds, varieties, benotein tam, are dependent upon whether it imparts a taste. Shelo bismano, but if it's chometz that comes after the holiday, bein b'mino, bein shelo b'mino, whether the mixture occurs between similar varieties or between dissimilar varieties, mutarim is permitted, ke Rabbi Shimon, like the view of Rabbi Shimon. And we'll go over just a tiny bit on Lamed, because I don't want to leave you hanging in suspense, right? Amar Rabba, what does Rabba say? Hilchata, what is the law, right? Chametz bismano, okay, namely leaven from during the holiday, if it becomes mixed, bein b'mino, bein shelo b'mino, regardless of whether it is with a similar mixture, a similar item, or a dissimilar item, asur b'mashahu kirav, it is forbidden whatsoever, like the view of, even with the smallest amount, like the rule of Rav. Shelo bismano, chametz that comes from after the holiday, leaven, soor, right? Bein b'mino, bein shelo b'mino, whether it is mixed with something of a similar kind or mixed with something of a dissimilar variety, mutar ke Rabbi Shimon, is permitted according to the view of Rabbi Shimon. And we're going to stop right there, okay, for today, okay, because the Gemara then is going to question Rava's decision on this item, okay? And we'll pick that up tomorrow, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, guys, so have a a good day. Take
Thank
care,
you. Thank you,
everybody.
Rabbi.
Thank
Stay
you.
well.
Rabbi, you're 100% right. Not easy Gemara.
What?
100%.